Welcome back, traveller of quiet hours. Tonight we drift into a world where the air moves slowly and time itself folds upon a rhythm, the soft toll of bells that mark the endless hours. Our story is called The Muted Bells of Medieval Monasteries, Hours Measured by Habit. Sometimes history doesn't shout, it hums, low, steady and unchanging. In the stone corridors of medieval monasteries, life moved not by desire, but by devotion. The days were carved by repetition, and the silence itself became a form of prayer. So wherever you're watching from, whisper in the comments. Tell me where you are and what time it is right now. And if you find yourself slowly drifting between wakefulness and rest, let the rhythm of history carry you there. If this calm journey soothes your thoughts tonight, remember to like this video softly and subscribe for more stories that never rush to be told. You arrive before dawn. The monastery sits beneath a thin layer of mist, its stone edges softened by the pale light that comes before morning. The world feels suspended, neither night nor day, only the space in between where breath seems too loud and footsteps feel like an intrusion. You pause at the gate, its iron damp with dew, and listen. There is no sound yet, not even the faintest whisper of the bell that governs every motion within these walls. You step forward, slowly, as though crossing from one kind of silence into another. The air smells faintly of wet soil and cooling smoke from fires long extinguished. You imagine that, inside, the monks are still asleep, their dreams quiet, ordered, disciplined. The kind of dreams that end exactly where they should, like prayers closing on a single word. You walk along the outer path, where moss climbs the stone like soft green fog. A single lantern burns in a narrow window above, steady and weak, its flame pressed thin against the glass. Time feels stretched here, long and unbroken, as if the world outside has forgotten how to hurry. Even the crows seem hesitant to stir. The sky begins to pale. Somewhere behind the thick stone walls you hear faint movement, robes brushing against the floor, sandals finding their slow rhythm across the flagstones. You imagine the monastery waking, not in noise but in order. Each motion deliberate, each pause intentional. The monks are rising not because they wish to, but because the rule has decided the hour. You reach the cloister gate. Beyond it lies the world they have built, a life shaped entirely by sound and silence, by the ringing of bells that divide day from night and night from prayer. You can almost sense the bell rope swaying faintly in the tower above, as if gathering breath for the first toll. In this moment, the air thickens. Dawn fully breaks, spilling soft gold over cold stone. The faintest echo trembles through the ground, a deep hum that feels less like a sound and more like the earth remembering something ancient. It is the beginning of another identical day, indistinguishable from the 1,000 that came before. You breathe slowly, letting the vibration settle into your chest. The first bell is about to sound. The first sound comes gently, not a strike, but a sigh through metal. You hear it long before you truly register it, as though the air itself has been waiting to exhale. The bell tolls once, then pauses, allowing silence to expand between each note like ripples spreading on a still pond. You stand still, eyes half closed, letting the sound travel through the mist. It is neither loud nor sharp. Instead, it feels like a slow remembering, a tone shaped by centuries of repetition, a reminder that nothing here begins or ends abruptly. Each ring folds into the next, softening the edges of time. Inside the monastery you can sense the monks moving. The first toll gathers them. Sandals scuff against stone. Doors creak open with familiar resistance. There is no rush, no murmured conversation. only the rhythm of people who have done the same thing every morning for as long as memory allows. You imagine their hands, roughened but calm, pulling on simple robes. You imagine the quiet shuffle of feet making their way toward prayer. The bell continues, each note falling slower, heavier, more certain. It does not announce, it affirms. The tone of obedience, of surrender to something older than the body. You begin to notice how your own breathing adjusts to its pace. Inhale, ring. Exhale, silence. Inhale again. A faint scent of oil drifts from the tower, where the bell rope sways with measured rhythm. The monk who tends it will not look up, will not hurry. His task is not to summon others, but to maintain the cycle, the endless circle of sound and stillness that defines their existence. Around you, the mist starts to lift. You can see the cloister arches now, long and pale, their outlines catching the earliest light. Drops of dew slide down the stone pillars, gathering at the base before disappearing into cracks darkened by centuries of repetition. Even decay seems to move in rhythm here. The final toll fades slowly, not gone, just absorbed by the walls. The silence that follows feels complete, like a held breath that no one intends to release. It is within that pause that the first prayer begins, whispered in unison, soft as the movement of air through an open corridor. You step forward, drawn toward that quiet gathering of voices. The first sound has ended, but its echo still lingers, guiding you deeper into the cloister. You move beneath the arches of the cloister, your steps echoing faintly against the flagstones. The sound folds back upon itself, softened by distance, as though the stones remember every footfall that has passed here before yours. The air feels cool and still, holding the remnants of incense from prayers past. Faint, sweet, and almost forgotten. You take your time, there is no reason not to. The courtyard lies at the centre of the cloister, square and silent, a patch of trimmed grass bordered by corridors that seem to stretch endlessly in muted repetition. In one corner, a fountain murmurs, not a song, but a slow and steady dripping that could go on forever without ever changing tone. You notice how the architecture itself encourages slowness. The arches repeat like a chant. Each shadow is a mirror of the one before it. The pattern feels infinite. Your gaze follows the curve of a column, up to the vaulted roof where light spills through narrow openings, bending softly against the dust that drifts in slow, deliberate motion. Somewhere ahead, robes rustle. A procession of monks moves in a single line, each carrying the same posture. Shoulders lowered, eyes averted, hands folded loosely in front. They walk not with purpose, but with rhythm, their steps synchronized to something unheard, something that lives in the silence between the bells. As they pass, one of them nods, a gesture of acknowledgement without expectation. You feel both seen and unseen at once, part of their quiet order though you do not belong to it. The corridor narrows as you follow them toward the chapel. The walls close in, heavy with age, their stones bearing faint traces of fingers that have brushed across them in prayer for generations. The scent of candle wax grows stronger. Each breath feels thicker, slower. You touch the cold wall beside you, feeling moisture gather against your skin. This place absorbs sound, time, and even thought. When you reach the courtyard's far edge, the monks turn left, vanishing into the dim corridor that leads to morning prayer. Their footsteps fade into the same silence that welcomed them. For a moment you remain alone, watching the mist thin above the fountain. The water catches the new light, soft gold rippling across its surface, never hurried, never still. The sound of the bell is gone now, replaced by something deeper, the rhythm of movement, of habit, of lives built around unending repetition. You breathe in that rhythm, and without realizing, you begin to match it. Ahead lies the chapel where the first prayer of the day begins. You follow the faint sound of voices through the narrow passage. The air cools as you step deeper inside, and the corridor begins to narrow until it feels almost alive, breathing with the rhythm of slow chanting that waits beyond the door. You pause for a moment, letting your eyes adjust to the dim light that seeps from within. The chapel is small, built entirely of stone the colour of old ash. Its ceiling curves inward like the inside of a shell, and every sound seems to fold gently back into itself. The monks are already gathered, standing in two silent rows facing each other. Their hoods are raised, faces dimly visible beneath candlelight that trembles faintly with each breath. The chant begins again, low and continuous. It is not music, not really. More like the repetition of air shaped into sound. Words blur together into rhythm. You cannot distinguish their meaning, and you're not meant to. This is not a prayer to be understood. It is one to be endured. You step quietly to the back, finding your place against the wall. The scent of burning tallow mixes with old stone and damp wool. Every few moments a monk inhales deeply, then exhales into the rhythm of the chant, a steady cycle, unbroken by emotion. There is no leader here. Each voice simply joins the others, and in doing so, disappears. You close your eyes for a moment. The vibration of their chanting passes through the floor and into your feet, rising slowly up your body until it hums in your chest. You imagine what it must feel like to live by this sound, to wake, work, and sleep by the same notes, repeated every day, every year, until life itself feels like a continuation of one long breath. A bell rings softly from the adjoining corridor, not loud enough to interrupt, but enough to mark the passing of a quarter hour. The chant does not stop. The sound of the bell slips inside it, becoming part of its rhythm, part of the endless circle that defines their days. One monk kneels, followed by the rest. The movement is slow, deliberate, identical. Robes shift like waves folding onto shore. The candles flicker again, their light bending through smoke. The silence between words feels longer now, thicker, as though even the air has learned patience. When the final note fades, it leaves behind a weightless hush. Not an ending, just a pause before the next duty. The monks remain still. You realise that this is how they measure time, not by the clock, but by the spaces between sound. You rise quietly. The morning prayer has ended, and yet the day has only just begun. The air outside the chapel feels lighter, though it still carries the echo of voices that have not truly stopped. You walk with the monks as they file silently into the corridor, each step careful, measured, and without expression. The chant lingers in their breath, as if the act of speaking has become a habit that even silence cannot undo. As you move deeper into the monastery, you begin to understand how time lives here. It does not advance, it folds. Every moment is a repetition of another, a continuation of what came before. This is the rule of hours, the unyielding rhythm that divides the day into fragments of prayer, work, reflection, and rest. It governs every sound, every motion, every silence. You walk beside a monk whose pace never changes. His sandals whisper softly against the flagstone floor, marking a rhythm older than his own heartbeat. He does not look at you, and you do not expect him to. His world is made of cycles, not faces. You realise that here, personality fades, only the pattern remains. At the far end of the corridor, a narrow window lets in a square of pale light. Dust drifts lazily within it, each particle caught in the same endless suspension. You stop and watch it for a while. Even the smallest things here seem patient. A faint chime sounds from the bell tower, not the deep tone of dawn, but a softer one, signalling transition. The monks turn, moving toward their next duty. None speak. The change from prayer to labour happens as gently as the change from night to morning, and you find yourself drawn along, absorbed into their rhythm. The corridor opens into a long walkway that circles the courtyard. The same fountain you saw earlier still drips, its sound unbroken. The bell's echo fades into that steady trickle, and for a moment you cannot tell where one ends and the other begins. A monk passes by carrying a bundle of tools, not for construction, but for maintenance, for care. You realise that much of their life is not about creation, but preservation, tending, mending, keeping things from falling apart too quickly. Their faith is not loud, it is patient. You walk slowly, feeling the pattern settle around you. The rule does not demand understanding, only obedience. The bells will ring again soon, and when they do, every motion will shift once more, not as change, but as continuation. You breathe in, feeling the stillness take hold. The next sound you hear will mark another hour, another beginning that feels exactly like the last. The corridor opens into a wide stone chamber filled with dim morning light. This is the workroom, where the monks labour through the quiet hours between prayers. There is no division of tasks announced aloud. Everyone already knows what must be done. It has been the same for years, perhaps for generations. The air smells faintly of dust and earth, of oil and parchment, of linen robes warmed by steady motion. Each monk moves to his station without a word. One begins to sweep, his broom sliding gently across the floor with a rhythmic, almost musical hush. Another tends to the fire beneath a small iron pot, stirring it now and then without looking up. Two others carry wooden planks to the far wall, repairing a bench worn down by years of use. Their gestures are identical, like mirror images repeating one another's motions. You stand near the entrance, feeling time flatten around you. The room hums with a quiet purpose, not of urgency, but of inevitability. Every scrape, every sigh, every breath seems part of a grand, slow pattern that never truly stops. Even in stillness, something is always being tended, restored, or watched. You walk to a small window overlooking the courtyard. The fountain is still dripping. The light has changed slightly, brighter now, but soft enough that it doesn't disturb the monotony. You can almost feel the hours stretching, steady and even, like the turning of a great invisible wheel. In one corner a monk polishes a brass lamp, his sleeve catching faint glimmers of gold as he moves. He pauses now and then, holding the lamp at eye level, examining it not for beauty but for completion. When it shines just enough, he sets it down, wipes his hands and begins again on another. There is no satisfaction in the act, only continuation. You begin to notice how the sounds of work align. The brooms whisper, the crackle of fire, the faint scrape of metal, all blending into a rhythm so gentle it feels almost like silence. It is not labour meant to accomplish. It is labour meant to endure. A monk passes by you, carrying a small basket of earth. He moves through a doorway leading to the garden beyond. You follow slowly, drawn by the soft crunch of his footsteps. The light through the archway shifts from stone grey to the muted green of morning leaves. You pause before stepping through. Behind you, the monks continue their quiet labour. Ahead lies another rhythm, the work of tending the living. You take a slow breath and follow. The scriptorium lies beyond the garden, a long narrow room where sunlight filters through tall, thin windows, striking the dust in golden slants. The air smells of old parchment, ink, and wood polish. It is quiet here, except for the faint rhythmic scratching of quills against pages, a sound both steady and soothing, like rainfall against stone. You take a slow step forward, observing the monks seated at their benches. Each one leans over his work, completely absorbed. Hands move deliberately, fingers steady, guiding quills across vellum with care that has no urgency. Ink pools and dries, leaving precise, patient marks. You notice how every gesture mirrors the one before it, and how the repetition itself seems to contain a kind of silent meditation. The room is heavy with calm. You can hear a faint sigh as a monk adjusts his posture, a soft rustle as pages are turned. Nothing startles, nothing interrupts. Each sound becomes a thread in the quiet tapestry of the room. You feel your own movements slow, your breath lengthen, matching the measured pace of this labour. A small stack of completed sheets rests on a wooden ledge. You watch as a monk lifts one, examines it briefly, then places it neatly into another pile. The motion is deliberate, repetitive, unhurried. It is not meant to impress, it is meant to continue. You walk to a corner where an unfinished manuscript lies open. The letters are precise, uniform, but the text itself is mundane. Lists of supplies, dates of harvest, notes on weather. You read a few words, then close your eyes. The monotony is comforting. Each letter, each word, is a reminder that life here moves slowly, carefully, and without excess. The faint warmth of morning sunlight brushes against your shoulder. A quill scratches again, soft as a whisper. Somewhere distant, a bell tolls, a muted note that does not demand attention, only reminds you that the hours advance in their quiet way. You notice how the sound blends seamlessly with the scraping of quills, the rustling of robes, the gentle creak of benches. Time feels suspended, stretched. You imagine the generations who have done the same work in the same room, their hands following identical patterns, their days marked only by the slow rhythm of writing and pausing. You breathe in, letting the stillness settle into your chest, and you begin to understand that here, in this quiet chamber, repetition is not tedious. It is a form of presence, a slow meditation where every sound, every motion, becomes a lullaby in itself. You bend closer to the manuscripts, noticing the fine grains of the parchment. Dust floats lazily in the air, caught in slanting beams of sunlight. It drifts in slow, lazy spirals, settling upon the ink and the edges of the pages. Each particle seems to pause mid-air before finally resting, a quiet echo of centuries of stillness. The monks continue their work, undisturbed by your presence. Their hands move over the parchment with steady deliberation, dipping quills into ink, scraping errors away with careful precision. No one hurries. Each line is drawn slowly, deliberately, as though the act of forming letters is more important than what they spell. The repetition becomes almost hypnotic, a rhythm you can match with the cadence of your own breathing. You run your fingers lightly along the edge of a page. It is smooth, slightly warm from the morning sun, yet faintly brittle, as though it remembers every touch it has ever received. You imagine the generations of monks who have written and rewritten these words, who have read and reread them, their lives a quiet echo of the same patient motions. The room is filled with soft, unbroken sounds, the scratching of quills, the rustle of robes, the occasional soft sigh. Even the air seems dense with concentration, yet light in its weight. Every motion folds into the next, creating a continuous, unremarkable symphony of labour. You feel the hum of that rhythm settling into your own chest, slowing your thoughts, guiding them into the same steady pattern. A monk pauses, lifts a page to the light, and examines it closely. He nods slightly, then returns it to its place. Another picks up a small stack and carefully arranges the sheets in order. There is no rush, no urgency, only the patient adherence to habit and duty. You sense that for them, completion is not a goal, but a continuation. A gentle affirmation that life persists in small, unbroken gestures. You glance at the window again. The sunlight has shifted. It now falls across the desk in a long golden stripe. Dust drifts through it, catching the light like floating motes of memory. You imagine that the light will continue its slow path across the room, touching every surface in turn, marking time without ever hurrying. You take a soft breath and lean back, letting the quiet rhythm of quills and the soft weight of sunlight settle over you. Here, in this scriptorium, even the passing hours feel like a gentle repetition, soothing and inevitable. You leave the scriptorium and step into your small cell, the one allotted to you within the monastery walls. The room is sparse, nearly empty, furnished only with a narrow bed, a wooden bench, and a single candle holder. The stone walls feel cool beneath your fingertips, smooth but uneven with age. Light filters softly through a tiny window, illuminating the room in a pale, steady glow. A candle sits unlit on the bench. You pick it up and feel its gentle weight. The wax is slightly warm from being handled earlier, and the wick is unburned, untouched. Lighting it is not a necessity yet, but the act itself brings a quiet rhythm to your movements. You strike a small flint, watching the tiny spark leap into life, then lean the flame to the wick. Slowly, the candle ignites, a soft golden tongue flickering into steadiness. You sit on the edge of the bed, feeling the cool stone beneath your back, the softness of the straw mattress beneath your body. The room smells faintly of stone, of wax, of linen, a combination that is neither distracting nor particularly fragrant, simply present. The stillness feels heavy, comforting, like a pause that has been waiting for you. From outside, the faint sound of bells reaches you again. You realize that the rhythm has not stopped. It continues to mark the hours without hurry, without emphasis, neither loud nor demanding. You close your eyes for a moment, listening as the toll travels through walls, corridors, and your chest, settling into your thoughts like a slow tide. The candlelight flickers against the stone walls, casting long, gentle shadows. You notice a small crack in the ceiling where light from the window above penetrates, and you imagine the movement of sun and dust over hours, days, perhaps decades, tracing the same slow pattern. Time here does not rush. It flows carefully, deliberately, like the soft slide of a quill across vellum or the slow rise and fall of a chant. You rise and move to the small desk in the corner, noting the neatness of the space. A single piece of parchment rests there, blank, waiting. Even in emptiness there is order. You sit and place your hand lightly on the surface, feeling its texture, noticing the cool smoothness, and allowing the quiet to settle fully around you. For a long moment, nothing happens. You simply exist in this calm repetition, feeling the slow passage of time marked only by the muted bells and the steady flicker of candlelight. The hour for the first meal approaches, though no one hurries. You move toward the refectory, a long narrow hall lined with wooden benches that have been polished smooth by generations of hands. The air carries the faint scent of bread, slightly warm and comforting, mingling with the cooler aroma of stone and candle smoke. Monks enter in silence, each taking their assigned place. You notice the uniformity of their movement, robes shifting softly, sandals whispering against the floor. There is no conversation, no laughter, no sudden noise. Even the clatter of dishes is muted, absorbed by the walls and the carpet of years. Everything seems to unfold at a deliberate, unchanging pace. The food is simple, a thick, coarse bread, some soft cheese, and water drawn from the well. You sit and watch as the monks lift their bread, break it slowly, and place it carefully to their lips. The act is methodical, measured, devoid of haste. You take your own piece and follow the rhythm, biting and chewing with the same quiet awareness, each motion deliberate. You notice the small details, the slight bend of a monk's head as he drinks, the way his hands fold neatly on the table between bites, the faint rustle of robes. The repetition itself becomes mesmerizing, a gentle lull that seems to extend the space of the room beyond its physical boundaries. Time feels broader here, like the soft stretch of a shadow across the stone floor. The silence is almost tangible. Every breath is amplified in your awareness. Every movement seems to leave a faint impression on the stillness. Even the act of swallowing becomes part of the monastery's rhythm, each person contributing to a quiet chorus of ordinary essential life. You lift your cup and drink slowly, noticing the cool water sliding past your lips. It is not refreshing or invigorating, it is simply present. You feel it mark the passage of this hour, one among many, a small step in the continuum of the day. When the meal ends, the monks rise as a single, unspoken signal. Each stands with the same careful motion, steps softly along the stone floor, leaving behind empty plates that will be cleared in due time. You follow, allowing your senses to absorb the gentle rhythm of departure, knowing that the next moment, the next duty, is already waiting, unhurried, inevitable, and quietly persistent. After the meal, you step into the monastery's herb garden. The air here is slightly warmer, carrying the subtle scent of damp earth and faintly fragrant leaves. Dew clings to the edges of herbs and small shrubs, each drop catching the soft morning light like tiny suspended stars. The garden is orderly, each row of plants trimmed and tended with a patience that feels almost eternal. You notice a monk kneeling in the soil, his hands steady as he loosens the earth around a small plant. He works slowly, methodically, pulling away tiny stones and arranging leaves without haste. There is no rush, no sense of urgency, only repetition, the same gentle gestures repeated hour after hour, day after day. You watch his fingers press into the soil, noticing the faint tremor of movement as he lifts a sprig and examines it. The fountain in the courtyard murmurs softly nearby. Its slow, consistent trickle blends with the faint rustle of leaves and the occasional brush of a monk's robe against the stone walkway. The sounds are barely distinguishable, yet together they form a delicate rhythm that defines the pace of the garden. You inhale deeply, letting the mingling scents and subtle noises settle into your chest, slowing your thoughts in tandem with the measured steps of the labourers around you. Other monks tend to different sections of the garden. One prunes a small shrub, each cut precise and deliberate. Another gathers herbs into a small basket, arranging them with quiet care before moving on. You notice how the garden seems almost alive in its steadiness, every plant, every leaf, every shadow conforming to the same slow, deliberate pattern of cultivation and care. You walk along the narrow path between the rows, feeling the soft dampness of the earth beneath your sandals. Each step is quiet, deliberate, matched by the careful steps of others around you. The world outside the monastery feels distant and hurried. Here, everything unfolds gently, insistently, without interruption. A faint breeze moves through the garden, shifting leaves and carrying a whisper of distant bells. You follow the sound with your attention, letting it settle into the rhythm of the day. The monks do not pause. They move slowly, continuously, as if time itself were a tangible substance to be moulded through their hands. You pause at a corner of the garden, watching the sunlight trace patterns across the stones and plants. The work continues uninterrupted, the hours marked only by subtle movements, soft sounds, and the quiet insistence of habit. Here, in the stillness of the monastery, life unfolds like a slow, deliberate meditation, one motion at a time. You walk toward the bell tower, following a narrow stone stair that winds upward. The air grows cooler as you ascend, carrying the faint scent of old wood and iron. Each step creaks softly beneath your weight, yet the sound is absorbed almost immediately by the thick walls, leaving only the sensation of slow, deliberate ascent. At the top you find the monk who tends the bells. He moves with an ease born of repetition, hands tracing the worn ropes and pulleys without urgency. His face is calm, almost expressionless, yet his attention is complete, absorbed entirely by the gentle rhythm of preparation. He does not speak. There is no need. The ritual itself guides his movements. The bells hang heavy above the courtyard, silent for a moment. You reach out, brushing a finger against the cool iron, feeling the weight that centuries of practice have given it. The rope coils neatly in his hands, worn smooth by touch and time. Every motion, pull, release, pause, is measured, exact, and patient. There is no rush, no expectation beyond continuity. He pulls gently, and the first toll rings out. The sound is deep and resonant, yet it is softened by the stone, carrying slowly across the courtyard and into the surrounding corridors. You notice how the vibrations pass through your body, settling into your chest and shoulders, slowing your heartbeat in a subtle, almost imperceptible way. The monk repeats the motion. The bell swings and the sound rolls outward once more. You watch the rope move through his fingers, the metal rise and fall, the air itself seeming to thicken around each note. There is a meditative quality in this repetition, a sense that time here is not marked by hours, but by motion and sound, endlessly and without interruption. From below, the courtyard is quiet. The monks pause in their work, heads slightly bowed, breathing aligned with the tolls. Even the birds seem to hush, their wings brushing softly against the morning air, careful not to disturb the rhythm that defines this place. You lean against the stone wall, feeling the vibrations through your feet. Each toll reminds you that life here is measured in patient repetition, a cycle that continues long after individual actions have faded. The sound fades, not abruptly, but gently, absorbed by the thick stone walls, leaving only a lingering echo that persists in the quiet air. As the final toll settles, you take a soft breath and step back, watching the monk coil the rope once more. The next sound will come, eventually, inevitably, continuing the slow, unwavering rhythm of this place. You pause in the corridor after leaving the bell tower, noticing how the air seems heavier, almost textured, with the memory of sound. The echo of the toll lingers faintly against the stone walls, absorbed and softened until it feels less like a noise and more like a presence, a gentle pulse underlying everything that happens here. The spaces between the hours are long. You begin to notice them more clearly now, the quiet stretches that pass after the bells, the moments when nothing moves but the subtle shift of dust in the light, the faint creak of wood settling. These gaps are as deliberate as the bells themselves, marking time not by action, but by stillness. You walk along a narrow corridor, your footsteps echoing softly, and notice how the monks move around you. Each step they take seems to extend the rhythm already set, a slow, continuous pulse. They do not glance your way. Their focus is not on you, nor on themselves, but on the motion of the day, a series of small, exact gestures repeated without attention or complaint. A soft draught carries the faint scent of incense from the chapel, blending with the stone, the candle smoke, and the lingering warmth from the sun filtering through distant windows. You take a slow breath, letting the calm settle into your chest, and feel the quiet continuity of life here press gently against your awareness. You notice a monk pausing to adjust a row of candles along the corridor. His fingers move with care, straightening each holder so that it aligns with the one beside it. The action is simple, almost imperceptible, yet there is a deliberate satisfaction in its precision. The gesture is repeated hundreds of times each day, yet there is no sense of impatience, only the steady fulfillment of habit. You continue walking, observing the subtle movements around you, a robe brushing lightly against stone, a hand trailing along a wall, the quiet alignment of objects in perfect order. Even as nothing significant happens, every motion carries the weight of intention, of ritual, of measured life. For a moment you pause and close your eyes. The silence between bells, between steps, between breaths, feels complete. Time itself seems to slow, folding gently around you, carrying you forward not by urgency, but by the persistent, unhurried rhythm that governs the monastery. You resume your walk, knowing that each step is both ordinary and deliberate, part of the unbroken pattern of the day that stretches endlessly before you. You enter the library, a vast room lined with shelves that reach high toward the ceiling. The air here is dense with the scent of aged parchment, the faint tang of ink, and the quiet mustiness of leather bindings pressed together over decades. Dust drifts lazily in the shafts of morning light, moving as slowly as the thoughts it seems to carry. Rows of books and manuscripts form gentle corridors of knowledge, each one resting in stillness. You run your fingers along the spines, noting their smooth wear and the subtle imperfections left by centuries of careful handling. Every volume has been touched, read, and set back in the same deliberate fashion countless times. The rhythm of repetition here is comforting, unhurried, and constant. You move deeper into the library, past tables where monks sit in patient silence. Some trace their fingers along pages, reading slowly. Others take quills in hand, dipping them into ink and adding small, careful notes. There is no rush to finish, no urgency to record more than can be done with care. The quiet scratching of quills blends with the soft rustle of parchment, creating a gentle, hypnotic soundscape. A single window lets in a narrow beam of sunlight that falls across a stack of open books. Dust motes float through it, each one tracing a lazy arc before settling. The light warms the pages slowly, illuminating the faintly faded words and the tiny imperfections of age. You watch as the sun moves, marking hours without urgency, and feel the slow passage of time settle over you like a soft blanket. You notice a monk carefully turning the pages of a manuscript, each movement precise and deliberate. His fingers hesitate for a moment at the corner of the page, then guide it smoothly onto the table. The act is simple, repetitive, and almost meditative. You feel a sense of peace watching him, as though the very rhythm of his labour has the power to still thought and calm the mind. Every sound in the library is absorbed, softened by the stone walls and heavy shelves. Even when a page is turned, it carries no suddenness, only continuity. You take a slow breath, letting your own heartbeat align with the quiet motions around you. For a moment, you pause in the centre of the room, letting the stillness wash over you. The library holds more than books. It holds the slow accumulation of lives lived in patience, repetition, and quiet devotion. Each shelf, each page, each breath carries the weight of centuries, yet none of it demands attention. It merely exists, steadfast and unhurried. Outside, the soft patter of rain begins to fall on the stone roof of the monastery. It is gentle, unhurried, almost imperceptible at first. Each droplet slides along the cold tiles before finding its way to the edge, joining countless others in a quiet, unbroken rhythm. You pause for a moment, listening, letting the sound blend with the distant echoes of bells and the faint murmur of monks moving through their duties. The rain carries a subtle scent of wet earth, mingling with the faint aroma of old stone and wood. You notice how it softens the world, muting distant sounds and adding a gentle weight to the air. Even the footsteps of monks in the courtyard seem quieter now, absorbed by the hush of falling water. The garden glistens, each leaf coated in a thin, reflective sheen, and each herb seems to bow slightly under the steady pressure of the droplets. You walk slowly along the covered walkways, feeling the cool dampness on your hands as you touch the stone railing. The world here is not in a hurry. The rain does not demand attention. It simply falls. You notice the way the light shifts through the grey sky, moving across the cloister and casting long, soft shadows on the flagstones. Every movement is gradual, deliberate, like the turning of an enormous wheel that marks time without haste. Inside, the monks continue their work, unaffected by the soft weather outside. Some carry small baskets of herbs, others adjust the alignment of books or sweep the wet leaves from the walkways. Every gesture is patient, precise, repeated with care. You feel your own breathing slow, aligning with the steady rhythm of these quiet motions, as if the monastery itself were guiding you into its measured pace. The rain intensifies slightly, yet remains soft and steady. You pause at the edge of the cloister, watching droplets slide down the stone walls, forming tiny rivulets that join in shallow puddles on the ground. Each movement is small, unremarkable, yet perfect in its repetition. You notice the way the monks step around the water, moving with quiet awareness, their actions harmonized with the unbroken pattern of life here. You take a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the cool, damp air fill your lungs. The soft rain, the muted voices, the careful motions of the monks, all of it blends into a continuous soothing rhythm. In this place, the passage of hours is measured not by urgency or excitement, but by the gentle, unwavering persistence of simple, repeated acts. You step into the small workroom where candles are made, a narrow chamber lined with shelves of wax blocks and simple tools. The air carries the faint, comforting scent of molten wax, slightly sweet and warm. Light filters softly through a high window, casting muted patterns across the wooden benches and stone floor. A monk stands at a table, pouring warm wax slowly into moulds. You watch the liquid fill each cavity, thick and golden, moving at its own deliberate pace. He does not rush, nor do you feel any need to. The act itself is enough, the slow, steady repetition of pouring, waiting, lifting and setting aside. It is a rhythm that requires patience, yet offers quiet satisfaction in its continuity. The wax hardens gradually, cooling in the still air. You notice the soft clink as finished candles are placed onto a nearby shelf, one by one, each exactly aligned with the next. The monk wipes his hands and begins again, dipping a new wick into the liquid wax before starting the process once more. Every motion is measured, unhurried, and precise. You run your fingers along the edge of the table, feeling the faint warmth lingering from the wax. The scent fills your senses, anchoring you in the room's calm. Outside, the soft rain continues, its steady rhythm echoing faintly through the thick walls. The combination of dripping water, cooling wax, and gentle movements creates a quiet cadence that seems to stretch time into slow, gentle waves. A small group of candles sits ready on a shelf, their surfaces smooth and golden. You imagine the countless days spent in this same room, pouring, waiting, setting aside, without haste, without drama. Each candle is a marker of persistence, of life lived in deliberate repetition. Even the most mundane gestures hold a quiet dignity here, and you feel yourself settling into their pace. You take a soft breath, feeling the air move gently around you. Every sound, every movement, every subtle shift in light contributes to a continuous rhythm that is both soothing and unbroken. The monk continues his work, and you continue to watch, absorbing the meditative cadence that defines life within these walls. The day moves on quietly, measured by wax, water, and the soft passage of time. You remain patient, aligned with the slow, unwavering rhythm of existence here. You leave the candle workshop and move toward the infirmary, a small chamber tucked into a quiet corner of the monastery. The air here is slightly warmer, infused with the faint scent of herbs and oils. Everything is orderly. Shelves lined with jars of dried plants, bundles of aromatic roots, and small wooden boxes containing powders. The room feels alive in its stillness, each object in its exact place, untouched yet carefully tended. A monk kneels by a small basin, washing a set of simple tools. He moves slowly, deliberately, each motion methodical, precise. There is no rush, no concern for speed. The task is carried out with a steady calm of habit. You notice how even the water's surface seems to ripple gently in response to each careful movement, like it understands the patience required here. You step closer to a shelf, noticing bundles of lavender, sage, and thyme hanging neatly. Their scents mingle softly, creating a muted, soothing aroma that fills the room. You inhale slowly, letting the warmth and fragrance calm your senses. Everything here is functional, yet there is a subtle elegance in its simplicity, a quiet reminder that life continues through careful attention and repeated actions. A monk carefully prepares a small poultice, mixing herbs with water. Each motion is measured, repeated, precise. He kneads the mixture slowly, pressing and folding it with quiet concentration. You watch, feeling your own thoughts slow to match the deliberate pace. The repetition is gentle, almost hypnotic, a rhythm that does not demand focus, only presence. The room holds a soft silence, broken only by the faint drip of water and the quiet rustle of robes. Every sound feels intentional, measured, like part of an ongoing meditation. You imagine the countless monks who have moved through this space over the centuries, performing the same small tasks, each gesture blending into the next, marking the slow progression of time without haste. You walk toward the window, looking out over the garden beyond. The rain has slowed to a gentle mist, settling on the leaves and stones. The courtyard appears soft and muted, every line and corner softened by the lingering moisture. Even the faintest movement, a leaf falling, a ripple in the fountain, feels deliberate, unhurried, perfectly aligned with the steady pulse of life here. You pause, letting the quiet settle fully around you. The infirmary, the tools, the scents, and the careful hands all form a slow, continuous rhythm. You take a long, gentle breath, letting it mingle with the muted world outside, feeling the calm persist, unbroken and unwavering. You leave the infirmary and wander through the cloister, noticing how the light has softened further. The rain has almost stopped, leaving only a fine mist that clings gently to the stone and the moss growing in cracks. The air is cool, damp, and heavy with quiet, as if the monastery itself has absorbed the soft passage of the morning. The monks move slowly along the corridors, each following a set rhythm. Some carry small bundles of herbs or tools, others walk empty-handed, their hands folded loosely in front. Every step is deliberate, measured, and steady. You notice how the echoes of footsteps are swallowed quickly by the thick stone, leaving behind only a sense of continuous motion, unhurried and unremarkable. You pause by the fountain in the courtyard. Water drips slowly from the spout into the basin below, forming faint ripples that spread and fade, then reform in the same gentle cadence. A few leaves float briefly on the surface before settling at the edges, their movement so subtle it takes a moment to notice. You realise that even the smallest details here follow the same rhythm, slow, persistent, unbroken. From the corner of your eye, you see a monk kneeling to adjust a stone in the pathway, smoothing its surface with careful, repeated motions. His attention is complete, his action steady, and entirely without urgency. You watch him, sensing how the monotony itself is comforting, how repetition becomes its own quiet meditation. The faint sound of bells reaches you again, softer now, a distant echo. You feel your breathing align with the rhythm, slow and steady. Each toll, each movement, each small gesture merges into the ongoing pulse of the monastery. Time feels extended, each moment stretching gently into the next, neither hurried nor interrupted. You continue along the cloister, noticing the interplay of shadow and light across the arches. Every arch mirrors the last, and every shadow falls in a predictable pattern, reinforcing the sense of slow continuity. You realise that life here is not measured by events or achievements, but by the steady persistence of small, deliberate actions, repeated day after day, hour after hour. You pause to watch a faint mist rising from the courtyard, curling softly around the stones. The air feels suspended, filled with gentle motion yet perfectly calm. You breathe in, letting the rhythm of the cloister, the muted bells, and the quiet labour of the monks settle within you, carrying you forward into the next slow hour of the day. You enter the monastery's kitchen, a small stone-walled room that smells faintly of bread, herbs, and warm iron. The fire in the hearth is low but steady, casting soft, flickering shadows across the walls. A monk stands over a simmering pot, stirring slowly with deliberate, even motions. Each turn of the wooden spoon is patient, controlled, like a quiet, meditative gesture. You notice the rhythm of the room, the gentle hiss of the fire, the occasional plop of liquid hitting the edge of the pot, the soft scrape of a knife against the cutting board. Nothing is sudden, nothing startling. Every sound blends seamlessly with the next, creating a subtle cadence that lulls you into awareness of the slow passage of time. Another monk carries freshly baked loaves from the oven, placing them carefully on a long wooden table. He arranges them in neat rows, adjusting each slightly with fingers that have repeated this motion countless times. You watch him pause after each placement, as if acknowledging the continuity of effort, then move to the next loaf with the same deliberate care. The scent of bread rises gently, mixing with the faint aroma of herbs hanging from hooks overhead. You take a deep breath, letting the warmth and fragrance settle around you, grounding you in the quiet rhythm of this labour. Even the smallest gestures here, turning a loaf, stirring a pot, lifting a basket, feel purposeful without being hurried, meditative without demanding attention. You step closer to a counter where vegetables are being chopped. Each slice is slow, precise, and deliberate. The rhythm of chopping is soft, almost like the tick of a slow clock. You notice the tiny sounds, the knife sliding through a stem, the soft thud of a cutting board, the faint rustle of leaves. Together they form a continuous, gentle pattern that fills the kitchen without urgency. From the small window above the sink, sunlight streams in at a muted angle, illuminating dust motes that float lazily in the air. The light moves gradually, stretching across the room, casting shadows that shift imperceptibly. You watch the play of light and motion, feeling your own senses slow to match the steady, unbroken cadence of the monk's work. You take a soft breath and stand quietly, feeling the warmth of the fire, the scent of bread, and the gentle rhythm of labour settle within you. Here, even the act of preparing food is measured, continuous, and calm, a simple meditation in motion that echoes the broader rhythm of the monastery itself. You move from the kitchen to the storeroom, a narrow chamber lined with barrels, sacks, and shelves stacked neatly with provisions. The air here is cool, slightly earthy, and carries the faint aroma of grain and dried herbs. Dust rises in tiny, lazy swirls with each movement, settling slowly upon every surface, undisturbed by hurry or sound. A monk is stacking sacks of flour along one wall. He lifts each one carefully, adjusting its placement with a gentle touch. The motion is repetitive yet deliberate, almost ritualistic. You notice how his hands move with quiet certainty, never hurried, each movement absorbed in the rhythm of the task itself. Nearby, another monk rolls barrels of water into position. The sound of the wood shifting against the stone floor is muted, softened by careful, patient effort. Each barrel moves only a short distance at a time, then rests, then moves again. The progression is so slow, so unremarkable, that it almost feels as though the passage of time itself is marked not by hours, but by the subtle, steady motion of objects in the storeroom. You walk along the narrow aisles, observing the arrangement of supplies. Everything is in order. Sacks aligned in neat rows, barrels positioned at regular intervals, small tools hung precisely along the walls. Even in stillness, the space feels alive with quiet intent. The pattern of organisation, repeated over years, carries a sense of calm inevitability. A faint beam of sunlight filters through a small window near the ceiling, catching the dust motes floating lazily in the air. You watch them drift slowly, settling occasionally on the stone floor or atop a sack. The movement is almost imperceptible, yet endlessly captivating. You feel yourself breathing in harmony with the gentle rhythm of this quiet, methodical labour. The monks continue their work without pause. One checks the weight of a sack, another straightens a row of jars, yet neither rushes. Every action flows seamlessly into the next, a slow, deliberate continuum. You feel the subtle pulse of time here, measured not in minutes, but in the persistence of repeated, careful gestures. You pause for a moment near a barrel, letting the quiet settle around you. The cool air, the faint scents, the gentle rhythm of stacking and rolling, all of it forms a soft, continuous pattern. You realise that in the storeroom, as in the rest of the monastery, life moves forward quietly, insistently, and without haste, each small action a part of the unbroken rhythm of the day. You leave the storeroom and move toward the cloister garden once more, the stone path slick with lingering mist. The air is cool and carries a faint, earthy scent of soil and leaves. Everything is damp, softened and still, as if the rain has left the world slightly muted, waiting patiently for the next movement. Monks tend the garden slowly, methodically. One weeds a small patch, fingers carefully plucking each plant that doesn't belong. Another spreads soil gently over recently planted seeds, pressing it down with quiet precision. Every action is deliberate, measured, and repeated countless times, yet there is no sense of monotony, only the gentle continuity of care. You pause by the fountain. Its soft trickle has returned, smaller than before, almost imperceptible. The water circles slowly in the basin, ripples colliding gently and fading without sound. You notice a leaf floating on the surface, turning in a slow, lazy circle, eventually drifting to rest against the stone edge. The movement feels suspended in time, marking hours in the most delicate, unhurried way. The garden is alive in its quiet rhythms. Sunlight peeks through the clouds, shifting gradually across the plants. You observe the monks adjusting small details, a branch bent slightly back into place, a stone nudged into alignment, a patch of earth smoothed evenly with a trowel. Their work is unhurried, almost meditative, as though time itself has slowed to match their motions. You walk along the path, noticing how each movement of your foot echoes softly against the stone. The faint brush of your robe against your leg, the soft rustle of leaves, and the distant muted bells form a rhythm that feels natural, unforced. You breathe slowly, matching the quiet cadence of this place, feeling your own pulse align with the gentle repetition surrounding you. A monk pauses to examine a small plant, turning it slightly in his hands, feeling the texture of its leaves. He adjusts it minutely, then returns it to its place. You watch and sense the same patience in your own body. The urge to rush dissipates, replaced by stillness, attention, and quiet acceptance. You remain by the fountain for a long moment, feeling the soft pattern of life in the garden. Every sound, every movement, every subtle shift in light or wind is part of the continuous gentle rhythm. Here, in this quiet courtyard, time flows not in urgency, but in patient, steady continuity, each small gesture a meditation in its own right. You walk along the cloister corridor, following the soft curve of arches that frame the garden outside. The walls are cool and smooth beneath your fingertips, slightly damp from the recent rain. Light filters gently through the arches, casting long, muted shadows that shift imperceptibly as the day moves on. The monks move in quiet procession along the corridor. Some carry small baskets of herbs from the garden. Others bring tools or supplies back to the workrooms. Every step is measured, deliberate, and soft against the stone floor. The sound is absorbed immediately, leaving only a sense of steady, unbroken motion. You notice how each movement flows naturally into the next, creating a continuous, gentle rhythm. You pause by a window and observe a small patch of ivy climbing the stone wall. Its tendrils twist slowly upward, curling in quiet, persistent repetition. You trace the motion with your eyes, noticing how it mirrors the steady, unhurried pace of life inside the monastery. The ivy does not rush. It does not need to. Its slow persistence feels in harmony with the cadence of the day. A monk passes nearby, adjusting a loose stone along the corridor. He kneels briefly, presses it firmly into place, and rises without word. The gesture is subtle, almost invisible, yet it is part of the ongoing pattern that defines the monastery's rhythm. You sense that every small act, repeated over centuries, contributes to a quiet, enduring order. The faint echo of bells reaches you again, softened by distance and walls. Each toll blends with the rustle of robes, the faint scraping of stone, and the gentle murmur of wind through the garden beyond. You feel your breathing align with the cadence, each inhale and exhale slow, even, and soothing. The day seems to stretch, measured not in minutes, but in the gentle unfolding of repeated acts. You continue walking, noting how the arches frame the world outside in a series of calm, repeated glimpses. The fountain glistening with lingering rain, a patch of herbs bending under mist, a monk moving slowly along a path. Every detail reinforces the sense of patient continuity, and you feel yourself drawn deeper into the stillness, letting the gentle rhythm settle fully within you. Time here is measured not by events or urgency, but by the unbroken pattern of small, deliberate gestures, each blending seamlessly into the next. You breathe slowly, letting the quiet embrace of the monastery guide you forward, one step, one motion, one soft sound at a time. You enter the monastery's small chapel, a narrow room of stone and timber that smells faintly of candle wax and incense. The light is muted, streaming softly through tall, thin windows and casting gentle patterns on the cold floor. Everything here feels measured, quiet, and patiently held in place by centuries of devotion. A monk kneels at the altar, his hands folded, head slightly bowed. He does not move suddenly, does not hurry. You watch him settle into the rhythm of prayer, each breath slow and even, each gesture deliberate. The repetition of his actions, adjusting his posture, crossing himself, resting his hands, forms a continuous calming pattern that seems to extend beyond the room itself. The faint smell of incense drifts from a small burner nearby, curling upward in soft, delicate spirals. You follow the motion with your eyes, watching as the smoke rises and disperses slowly into the high ceiling. It moves at its own pace, neither rushed nor controlled, and in its quiet ascent you sense the same rhythm that governs the life of the monastery, steady, unhurried, and persistent. Candles along the altar flicker softly, their light trembling gently in response to the draughts moving through the chapel. You notice the subtle shift of shadows across the stone floor, long and deliberate, marking the passage of time without urgency. Even the faint sound of distant bells seems tempered here, absorbed into the quiet calm, becoming part of the continuous rhythm of presence and stillness. Another monk enters quietly, placing a small book of chants on the lectern. He opens it with careful fingers, turning each page slowly before kneeling in silent attention. You notice how every gesture is precise, repeated, and deliberate, a meditation in motion. Each act flows naturally into the next, blending with the soft echoes of the chapel and the gentle patter of your own breath. You walk slowly down the centre aisle, your footsteps soft against the stone floor. Each movement feels in tune with the quiet action surrounding you, aligned with the measured pace of life here. Time seems suspended, stretching gently across the space as you observe, breathe, and exist within this serene, unhurried pattern. You pause before a simple cross at the far end of the chapel. The world outside fades further into distance. Here, in the quiet repetition of prayer, light, and motion, the day moves forward with gentle inevitability, each moment unfolding softly, unbroken, and calm. You leave the chapel and descend a narrow stairway into the monastery's crypt, a cool, quiet space of stone and shadow. The air is slightly damp, carrying the faint, earthy scent of ages past. Your footsteps echo softly, absorbed almost immediately by the thick walls, leaving only a sensation of slow, deliberate movement. Rows of stone coffins line the walls, each marked with simple inscriptions worn smooth by time. You move slowly between them, noting the careful alignment, the quiet order that has persisted for centuries. There is no fear here, no drama, only the calm, patient continuation of life remembered in stone and silence. A monk is carefully dusting the surfaces of the crypt, his movements slow and methodical. Every sweep of the brush follows a precise, repeated rhythm. You notice how his attention never wavers, how each gesture flows seamlessly into the next, forming a continuous, gentle motion that seems to absorb the very passage of time. The faint light from a small window near the ceiling illuminates the dust motes suspended in the air. They drift lazily, rising and falling in slow, hypnotic arcs. You watch them for a long moment, letting the movement anchor you in the calm, steady rhythm of the crypt. Time feels softened here, elongated, as if the world outside has slowed to match the deliberate pace within. Another monk moves quietly among the coffins, adjusting a small candle, ensuring it remains upright. He does not rush. Each action is patient, unhurried, precise. The flickering flame casts gentle, moving shadows across the stone, merging with the soft patterns of light from the window. Every detail, every motion, reinforces the sense of continuity, a measured persistence that has endured for generations. You pause near a low stone bench, sitting briefly to observe the quiet. The air is cool and still, yet filled with the subtle hum of motion, a brush sweeping, a candle flickering, dust drifting. Each movement is small, almost imperceptible, yet together they form a soft, continuous rhythm that defines the space. You rise and take a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the calm settle into your chest. The crypt, like the rest of the monastery, exists in patient, unbroken repetition. Life continues quietly here, marked not by sudden events or drama, but by the slow, gentle persistence of small, deliberate gestures that echo across centuries. You leave the crypt and ascend back to the upper corridors, noticing the subtle shift in temperature and light. The coolness of the lower chambers gives way to the soft warmth of filtered sunlight streaming through the narrow windows. The air carries a faint scent of stone and dust, mixed with the lingering fragrance of herbs from the garden below. A monk walks slowly along the corridor, carrying a small bundle of linens. Each step is deliberate, measured, and quiet. You notice the gentle sway of his robes, the soft sound of sandals brushing the stone floor, absorbed almost immediately by the thick walls. There is no urgency here. The motion is steady, continuous, and unremarkable in its own quiet way. You pause at a corner, observing the movement of dust motes in the beam of sunlight. They drift lazily, rising and falling with imperceptible rhythm. You follow their motion with your eyes, letting the slow, continuous drift synchronize with your own breathing. Time feels suspended, elongated by the gentle repetition of sights and sounds that surround you. Nearby, another monk tends to a small wooden chest, adjusting its contents with careful, deliberate hands. Each item is replaced with precision, aligned exactly as before. You notice how repetition itself becomes a form of meditation here, a way of preserving order, continuity, and calm without haste or drama. The faint echo of bells reaches the corridor again, softer this time, as though filtered through walls and distance. Their sound is absorbed into the rhythm of movement, footsteps, and quiet tasks. You feel your own pulse slow, matching the gentle cadence of life in the monastery, measured, unhurried, and continuous. You continue walking, observing small details. The smooth polish of a stone banister, the faint discoloration of a sunlit wall, the careful alignment of wooden shutters. Every gesture, every movement, every subtle shift contributes to the soft, unbroken rhythm of the day. Pausing at a window, you look out across the courtyard. The garden glistens faintly from the morning mist, leaves still bearing droplets of rain. A monk passes below, moving slowly along the path. You notice the gentle sway of his arms, the soft tap of sandals, the serene continuity of his motion. Here, in the quiet unfolding of daily life, time is measured not by events, but by the deliberate, patient repetition of small, mindful acts. You descend once more to the scriptorium, where the soft glow of daylight filters through tall windows onto long wooden tables. The air is calm, carrying the muted scent of parchment and ink. Everything here feels deliberate, measured, and suspended in quiet continuity, as though each object and motion has its own patience. Monks sit at the tables, quills in hand, writing slowly and carefully. Each stroke is deliberate, the nib pressing softly into paper, leaving faint impressions that mark the slow progress of hours. You notice the almost imperceptible rhythm of their hands, dipping into ink, lifting, pausing, then tracing letters in exact, unhurried repetition. The motion is hypnotic, each gesture blending seamlessly into the next. A pile of manuscripts rests at one end of the table, pages stacked with precise order. Another monk turns a leaf slowly, examining the writing and illustrations with careful attention. Even the faint rustle of paper is absorbed into the stone walls, becoming part of the soft, continuous soundscape of the room. You move along the tables, observing the light shifting across the surfaces of parchment. Dust motes drift lazily, illuminated in slender beams, rising and falling without urgency. You feel your own awareness slowing in tandem with the gentle repetition around you. The rhythm of quills, the faint scratching of ink, and the soft turn of pages create a calm, unbroken meditation of sound and motion. One monk pauses to blot a line of writing, pressing the paper gently with a piece of cloth. You notice the patience in his gesture, the deliberate care that marks every action. There is no rush, no need to hurry. Each movement is enough, forming part of the continuous cadence that defines life in this space. The day moves forward quietly, measured by ink, paper, and careful hands. Each task merges seamlessly into the next, each monk contributing to the unhurried, persistent rhythm that fills the scriptorium. You take a slow, soft breath, letting the calm of repetition settle within you, aligning your heartbeat with the steady passage of time. You linger for a moment, watching the sunlight slowly traverse the tables, illuminating the worn edges of pages and the careful gestures of monks at work. Here, in this quiet chamber, life continues softly, unbroken and measured, one deliberate motion at a time. You leave the scriptorium and move through the cloister toward the monastery's small workshop, a quiet space filled with the faint scent of wood and sawdust. Light filters softly through a narrow window, casting muted patterns across the benches and shelves. The room is orderly, every tool in its place, each surface polished with patient repetition. A monk works slowly at a carving table, smoothing a piece of soft wood with gentle, even strokes. Each movement is deliberate, measured, and unhurried. You notice the quiet concentration in his posture, the way his fingers guide the tools without haste. The process itself is the focus, not the finished object. The rhythm of work matters more than any result. Nearby, another monk sands a small wooden box, moving the paper across the surface in soft, repeated motions. The faint grit of sand against wood is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it merges with the other gentle sounds in the room to form a quiet cadence. You take a slow breath, letting the mixture of scents and sounds settle over you. The workshop is a place of quiet diligence. Monks move with calm, deliberate care, picking up tools, adjusting materials, and returning them without urgency. Every motion flows naturally into the next, each action forming part of the continuous, unbroken rhythm that defines this space. You notice the way even small gestures, the lifting of a chisel, the turning of a block of wood, the gentle tap against a surface, create a soft, hypnotic continuity. A faint breeze drifts in from the open window, carrying the smell of damp stone and distant herbs. Dust motes float slowly in the sunlight, drifting in gentle arcs and settling softly on the benches and floor. You watch them for a long moment, feeling the calm they inspire, the sense of slow, persistent order that pervades the room. You take a slow, deliberate step back, observing the monks and their work. Nothing happens suddenly. Nothing demands immediate attention. The day unfolds at its own measured pace, each small motion repeated and respected. In the quiet persistence of the workshop, you sense the gentle continuity of life itself, moving softly, steadily, and without hurry. You linger at the threshold, taking one more slow breath. The workshop, the soft light, the faint aroma of wood and dust, all of it blends into a continuous, unbroken rhythm, guiding you gently forward into the calm, persistent flow of the monastery's day. You step into the monastery's guest chamber, a small, sparsely furnished room with stone walls and a single narrow window. The air is calm and slightly cool, carrying the faint scent of linen and wood. Everything here is simple and deliberate. A neatly made bed, a small wooden chest, and a table with a solitary candle. A monk enters quietly, adjusting the folds of a blanket with careful, measured motions. Each gesture is slow and precise, repeated countless times over the years. You watch as his hands smooth the fabric, then step back to observe the alignment, then return to adjust again. There is no rush. The rhythm of action itself seems more important than the result. You move toward the table and notice a small bowl, perhaps used for water or herbs. Its placement is exact, in line with the edges of the table and the edge of the bed. A faint light from the window glimmers on the surface, highlighting the gentle curves of the bowl. You pause, feeling how even this quiet, seemingly insignificant alignment contributes to the steady, unhurried order of the room. The candle flickers softly in the gentle draught, casting subtle shadows across the walls. You notice the way the flame leans and sways, moving in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Each subtle movement seems to match the careful, measured gestures of the monks, the silent cadence of the day, and the steady beat of your own breathing. A monk kneels briefly to arrange a small set of books on the shelf, turning each slightly to ensure alignment. The soft scrape of wood on wood is quiet, almost imperceptible, yet it becomes part of the continuous hum of activity that defines the chamber. Each small motion merges seamlessly with the next, forming a gentle, unbroken rhythm that feels comforting in its persistence. You stand by the window, looking out over the garden where the mist has almost vanished. The courtyard is calm, and the movement of monks below is slow, deliberate, and continuous. Even in this small, quiet room, life unfolds in steady, measured gestures. You take a slow, deep breath, letting the calm settle fully within you, aligning your awareness with the soft, unhurried rhythm of the monastery. The guest chamber, simple and still, carries the same persistent, gentle cadence as every other part of this quiet place. You linger, letting the tranquility of repetition guide your senses, and feel the soft continuity of life echo around you. You move through the upper hallways, quiet now with the late afternoon light stretching across the stone floors. The warmth of the sun filters gently through the windows, casting long, soft shadows that shift imperceptibly as the day continues its slow rhythm. Every detail is softened by this light. The worn edges of the walls, the smooth polish of the banisters, the muted colours of tapestries that hang still and heavy. Monks walk along the corridors with steady, deliberate steps. Some carry small tools or linens, others move with empty hands, their heads bowed slightly. Each motion is slow, precise, and part of a continuous rhythm that marks the passage of time without urgency. You notice how the soft echo of footsteps is swallowed quickly by the stone, leaving behind a sense of ongoing, gentle motion rather than sound. You pause at a window overlooking the cloister. The garden below glows in the softened afternoon light, leaves rustling ever so slightly in a calm breeze. A monk walks along a path, adjusting a plant or smoothing the soil with careful, repeated gestures. Each action is deliberate, unhurried, and blends seamlessly into the steady cadence of the day. You continue along the corridor, observing how light moves slowly across the stone, highlighting subtle textures and colours. A small desk against the wall holds a neatly stacked set of parchments. A quill rests in an ink pot nearby, still moist from careful use. Even these small details seem alive with calm repetition, part of the gentle, unbroken rhythm that defines life here. The faint, distant tolling of bells reaches you again, softened by distance and time. Each sound blends with the muted movements, the soft rustle of robes, and the quiet shifting of light, forming a gentle, continuous meditation in sound and motion. You take a slow, deliberate breath, letting your own pulse align with this rhythm, feeling a deep, calming stillness settle within. You pause to rest for a moment, leaning slightly against the cool stone. Everything here, the quiet corridors, the steady footsteps, the shifting light, the faint scent of herbs and dust, contributes to a sense of patient continuity. Life in the monastery unfolds slowly, measured not by urgency or drama, but by the persistent, gentle repetition of small, deliberate acts. As the sun begins to lower further, casting longer shadows, you feel the soft, unhurried cadence guiding you onward, preparing for the closing hours of the day and the quiet, reflective hours that follow. You enter the evening hall, where the soft glow of candlelight mingles with the fading daylight, casting gentle, flickering shadows across the stone floor. The air is cooler now, carrying the faint scent of herbs, wax, and worn wood. Everything feels still yet alive with quiet, deliberate motion. Monks move slowly through the hall, carrying candles or adjusting simple furnishings. Every step, every gesture is precise and unhurried. You notice how each action flows seamlessly into the next. The lighting of a candle, the smoothing of a tablecloth, the careful placement of a book. There is no urgency here, only the calm, continuous rhythm of life winding toward evening. You pause near a window, watching the soft transition of light as the sun dips lower. The courtyard outside is bathed in muted gold, leaves trembling ever so slightly in a gentle breeze. A monk walks slowly along the path, pausing to adjust a stone or a branch, each movement deliberate, perfectly aligned with the steady cadence of the day. The faint tolling of bells marks the approaching hour, softened by distance and time. You feel the sound settle in your chest, a reminder of the persistent, unbroken flow of life here. The monks begin their evening prayers, kneeling in quiet repetition, their motions slow and measured, each gesture blending seamlessly into the next. You sense the calm continuity in their devotion, the gentle rhythm that carries across the monastery. You walk slowly through the hall, observing small details, a candle's flame swaying, the gentle alignment of a row of chairs, the quiet shuffle of robes against stone. Each subtle motion becomes part of the soft, continuous pattern surrounding you. You breathe deeply, letting your senses absorb the gentle cadence, feeling the quiet, unwavering rhythm settle within you. As night approaches, the monastery becomes enveloped in stillness. The day's labours fade into the gentle persistence of evening routines. Candles glow softly, shadows stretch and soften, and the monks move quietly, each action deliberate and unhurried. You feel the calm of repetition, the serene continuity of small measured acts guiding you toward rest. You pause, listening to the soft echo of distant bells and the faint rustle of robes. The world is slow, steady, and unwavering. You take a final deep breath, letting the quiet persistence of the monastery fill your awareness, preparing your mind and body for the gentle descent into sleep. The day in the monastery comes to a gentle close. You remain in quiet stillness, aware of the soft interplay of candlelight and shadow, the subtle shifting of air through the arches, and the distant muted tolling of the bells. Each sound, each movement, carries the calm, unhurried rhythm of life here, a rhythm that stretches endlessly, gently, without urgency. You take a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the weight of the day settle in your chest. The warmth of the candles, the faint scent of herbs and wax, the soft textures of stone and wood, all merge into a single soothing experience. You notice how even the smallest gestures, repeated countless times over the centuries, form a continuous, unbroken cadence that persists beyond words or thought. Your mind softens as you reflect on the quiet diligence of the monks, their slow steps through the cloisters, the careful alignment of stones, the gentle turning of pages, the patient tending of gardens, the soft rhythm of prayer. Each action, small and deliberate, becomes a meditation, a quiet proof of the persistence and continuity of life. You feel yourself drawn into this cadence, your own breathing, your own thoughts, slowing to match the measured, unwavering pace around you. Outside, the courtyard lies softened in the stillness of night. Mist drifts slowly across the stones, leaves settle with gentle finality, and the faint glow of distant candles marks the end of the day's tasks. You sense the calm inevitability of routine, the quiet beauty of repetition, and the steady pulse of life carried through centuries. There is no rush, no drama, only the gentle, continuous flow of being. As your awareness sinks further, you feel your body relax fully, guided by the slow, deliberate patterns that surround you. Every sound, every subtle movement, every soft scent becomes part of a continuous lullaby. You're present in the stillness, aligned with the persistent, unbroken rhythm of the monastery, letting it carry you gently toward rest. The day ends as it began, quietly, steadily, without urgency. The monks have completed their tasks, the candles burn low, and the world outside is hushed. You take one final deep breath, feeling the calm settle completely, the gentle cadence of repetition guiding your mind towards sleep.